Hello, everyone. It's Caroline here, and we're going to continue looking at the history of medicine. So, if you've seen my previous videos, I've looked at different factors. What we're going to do now, we're going to go back to the beginning. We're going to have a look at each time period in turn, starting off with the Middle Ages. So, we're going to look at beliefs about causes of illness, we're going to look at treatments, how people prevent it. We're starting off with the causes, though. So by the end of the lesson, you can explain in a range of beliefs. So if we were to go back in time, stop a medieval person in the street and say, what makes people sick? We'd know what they would say. And we're going to look at them. They're in two categories. So there's supernatural, so beliefs in religion, or maybe beliefs in witchcraft, things like that, or rational, so things that look for a cause inside the body, even if they're wrong. Those are the two things we're going to be looking out for. So, we're going to start off with the most important one for the Middle Ages, religious explanations. So, Middle Ages England, we're talking about the Catholic Church here. So this is a time about half the population don't reach adulthood. You have a 50-50 chance in the Middle Ages of making it past the age of 16, 17, which is terrible odds, especially if you think about how healthy your average medieval person was. So over 90% are peasant farmers. So the chances are you and I would be peasants if we lived in the Middle Ages, and we would spend all of our time outdoors in the fresh air. We would be exercising continually because we'd be doing farming by hand. We'd have an incredibly healthy diet, very little meat, no fats, no sugar. And yet, half of us wouldn't reach adulthood because of the amount of illnesses. So, illness is really common in the medieval times. So they think about it a lot. There is no scientific knowledge around medicine. There's no sort of experiments going on because they think they know the answer, that it's God. If you are sick, it's because God has made you that way. So they aren't looking for other causes. Again, if we stop that medieval person in the street, why do people get sick? It is God, without question. So if you're certain you know the answer, why would you go looking for different answers? So the church teaches it in a Bible that sin could be punished. And one of the ways that you could be punished was with illness. So this isn't just like physical sin, like actively doing something wrong. It could be sinful thoughts. So you come home at the end of a long day farming in the fields, you're really tired, someone asks you to do something, and you momentarily have the thought of, oh my goodness, I can't be bothered. That is a sin because you've had the sinful thought of laziness. So the reason that I'm making a point of that is nobody in this time period is not a sinner. There is nobody who can say, hand on heart, I've never sinned, because even your thoughts could be sinful. So, what that means, it never gets questioned. There's never anyone saying, but hang on a minute, I haven't sinned. How come I'm ill? Because everyone has sinned. It could also be sent to cleanse your soul. So maybe you're someone who doesn't sin very much. Maybe God sends it to you as a test. So this explains away maybe you're a really good person. You sin very, very little, and yet you're constantly getting illnesses. But someone in the next house sins all the time and never gets sick. So you might go to the priest and be like, what's going on here? How is this fair? Maybe because you're so good, God just wants to test you. He's giving you like a little extra test. He's made you ill. Will you turn on him? No, because that gets you extra brownie points. They might also say it's not God making you sick, it's the devil to test you. So maybe the reason you as a lovely person get sick is because the devil's trying to get you to turn your back on God and go, it's not fair, you're making me ill. Do we see how there is nothing that proves them wrong? So they're saying God makes you sick or it's the devil. There's nothing you can do as an ordinary person to prove them wrong. So you're going to go along with it. And remember, at this time, people believe heaven and hell are real physical places. Hell is somewhere you go to. You are going to be tortured for all of eternity. So the person who can save you from that is the Catholic Church. So whatever they say, you are going along with. Recovery could be interpreted as a miracle. So naturally, you get ill, your immune system kicks in, maybe you manage to fight it off, you get better. That's because God's finished punishing you. So God makes you ill to punish you. You then maybe pray, tell God you're really sorry for your sins. God hears your prayer, so you get better. So an awful lot of medieval medicine is caught up in the Catholic Church. So leprosy is a disease that we are going to look at because it's mentioned in the Bible. So this is an illness that is specifically written about in the Bible, and it's sent as a punishment for sin. So if you sin and you offend God, you will have leprosy. So leprosy is still a disease you can get in, it tends to be in developing countries. So it's a terrible skin infection. So it will cause you to lose limbs. So the picture's black and white, but you can kind of see there's like a stick coming out from under his coat. That's supposed to be his arm, but he's lost a hand. And I don't know if you see it down the bottom, he's got a leg, but he's lost a foot. So leprosy, terrible disease to have. So you'll lose things like your nose, your hand, your foot. It is fatal. It will kill you. There is no cure for it in the Middle Ages. So it is a death sentence and a really painful, horrible one. So this is an example. If you have sinned, God might send you leprosy. But it also shows us our second cause, and that's infection. So people in the Middle Ages are not stupid. So leprosy is passed from person to person by touch. They get that. They get that that person had leprosy and you got really close to them and now you have leprosy. They work out what's happened there. So infection is something that's useful if you have a question on similarities. So both exam boards will ask you in what ways medicine's similar from one time period to another. And differences is really easy because medicine changes a lot. Similarities can be harder. So worth tucking away in the back of your mind that in every single time period, people understand that if you get too close to someone with an infectious illness, you will get it yourself. And you can see in the picture there, the man's holding a bell. So lepers were required to ring a bell as they walked. There were other laws like they're banned from going down alleyways where they might accidentally bump into people. And that bell's there to warn people so they can get out of the way and not be infected. So leprosy, absolutely awful disease for someone in the Middle Ages. Another cause that people look at is astrology. And this keeps going well into the Renaissance time period. So the idea that diseases will be different for different people. So we're very used to the idea that there are diseases out there, and if we get them, it doesn't matter who we are, we will have the same symptoms. People in the Middle Ages didn't believe that. So they thought the time of year you were born was really important. Often physicians wouldn't actually meet patients. They would just get a chart of when they were born, when they felt ill, and they would look at the planets and the alignment of planets. So astrology, the study of planets, is also really important. They do believe that if the planets go in an unusual alignment, it might bring illness. And what really doesn't help with that is the year before the Black Death, there is an incredibly unusual alignment of planets. And it was just sheer coincidence. But People seeing the unusual alignment of planets were like, something bad's coming. I wonder what it could be. The next year, the Black Death appears. And so it reinforces the idea the alignment of planets can make you ill. So then those are all supernatural ideas. We're going to look at the first big rational idea. And it comes from a Greek doctor called Hippocrates. Now, if you want to remember it as Hippocrates, you go for it. If that's going to help you spell him correctly, Hippocrates, absolutely fine. So it's Hippocrates. And he's a Greek doctor, so he's long before the Middle Ages, but his ideas are going to keep going. So Hippocrates is sometimes called the father of medicine because he's the first person to suggest that maybe you get sick because something in your body has gone wrong, rather than God or witches or planets. So he's totally wrong, but at least he's putting us on the right path. And this is what Hippocrates comes up with, the theory of the four humours. Now, the four humours is a really simple idea. The only thing that's complicated about it is the name. So humour comes from the Greek word humon, meaning liquid. If you just think of it as the four liquids, it suddenly becomes a lot simpler. So Hippocrates' theory of the four humours, super straightforward. There are four humours or liquids in the body. Too much of one, too little of one, you're going to get sick. Nice and simple. So he says the four liquids in the human body: blood, yellow bile, so like vomit, black bile, and then phlegm. So four humours, four liquids in the body. What he comes up with is actually quite sensible. It's totally wrong. It's not at all what happens in the body, but it's sensible when you remember that these people don't know what goes on inside a human body. And it's hard for us to get our heads around because we are so familiar with the insides of humans, and doing GCSE biology, you will know all about it. But in the Middle Ages, there's no real dissection. The ordinary people, what you can see on the outside is what you know. And if you think of it from that angle, why does that person have a nosebleed? Well, maybe there's too much blood in them, and so it's leaking out of their nose. Why is that person vomiting? Maybe they've got too much yellow bile in them, and so it's coming out of their body. Totally wrong, but you can kind of see where they're coming from. It's not a totally irrational idea. So there, Hippocrates' theory of the four humours or the four liquids in the body: blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm. Phlegm is hard to spell. Remember that it's got the word leg in the middle, and it's PH and not F, and you won't go too far wrong. Phlegm. So too much of one in your body, too little of one, you're going to become sick. So why is this so important? Hippocrates' theory of the four humours. So it is absolutely wrong, but it's influential. It's going to last 1,000 years. And it does set people on the right track. So when the theory of the four humours goes, it's going to be replaced by another idea that there is something in the body that goes wrong, rather than supernatural causes. So Hippocrates, totally wrong, but at least people are now looking inside the body for reasons why people get sick. One other key idea called miasma. This is going to keep going all the way up to the 1850s. If you're a fan of Charles Dickens, one of his major characters in one of his books is actually killed by miasma. So that's how long it's going to keep going, well into the Victorian era. So bad, harmful air thought to spread disease. So you're walking down the street, you smell the miasma, that's going to make you sick. So again, completely wrong. But kind of there, the idea that breathing in things can be harmful. So, a little summary. You had stopped your medieval peasant in the street. You're like, what makes you sick? First thing they're going to say is God. They might also mention infection, but that still links with God because God chose for people to get leprosy in the first place for humans. But again, that can still link to God. So God has made your humors go out of balance. God has made it so you have too much blood or too little phlegm. And then miasma. And again, you can still go with God. God's created the miasma. God sent you into the path of miasma. So there you have it. The four main things that will make you sick in the Middle Ages.